This is Trade Flow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. Trade Flow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
OPEC oil output has fallen in July after Saudi Arabia made an additional voluntary cut as part of the OPEC Plus producer group's latest agreement to support the market, and an outage curbed Nigerian supply, a Reuters survey found on Monday. The OPEC has pumped 27.34 million barrels per day, BPD, this month, the survey found, down 840,000 barrels of oil per day from June. That's the lowest since September 2021 according to Reuters surveys. Saudi Arabia pledged to cut output by 1 million barrel of oil per day in July as part of OPEC Plus' deal in June, which limits supply into 2024. Oil has begun to rally in response, with Brent crude trading above $85 a barrel, up from near $71 in late June.
Oil prices edged lower on Tuesday on signs of profit-taking after rallying in July, when investors benefited from tightening global supplies and signs of growing demand in the second half of the year. Brent crude futures for October were at $85.89 a barrel at 0822 GMT, down 54 cents. Front-month Brent settled at its highest since April 13 on Monday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were at $81.24 a barrel, down 56 cents from the previous session's settlement, which was its highest since April 14.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. crude oil and petroleum products supplied, a proxy for demand, rose to 20.78 million barrels per day, BPD, in May, the highest since August 2019 before the coronavirus pandemic decimated global energy demand, Energy Information Administration data showed on Monday. Product supplied of finished motor gasoline rose in May to 9.11 million barrels of oil per day, the highest since June 2022. Meanwhile, U.S. field production of crude oil fell to 12.66 million barrels of oil per day in May, the lowest since February, AIA data showed. Production in Texas rose 0.9% to 5.5 million barrels of oil per day, its highest on record dating back to 2005.
Britain on Monday committed to granting hundreds of licenses for North Sea oil and gas extraction as part of efforts to become more energy independent, drawing criticism from environmental campaigners. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed plans for more than 100 such licenses, which attracted bids earlier this year, and said hundreds of future licenses could also be granted. He also announced fresh support for 2 carbon capture and storage (CCS) clusters in Scotland and Northern England. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Global gold demand excluding over-the-counter trading fell 2% year-on-year to 920.7 metric tons in the second quarter of 2023 as central banks slowed their purchases and consumption by the technology sector remained soft, the World Gold Council, WGC, said on Tuesday. However, demand from both jewelers, which account for around half of gold demand, and investors, who see bullion as a safe asset during periods of global instability, remained resilient, supporting high prices in April to June, the WGC said in its quarterly demand trends report. In the first half of 2023, central banks bought 386.9 metric tons of gold, more than in any January to June period in data going back to 2000, the WGC said.
Copper prices in London fell on Tuesday, as a firmer dollar made greenback-priced metals more expensive to holders of other currencies. 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange eased 0.5% to $8,788 per metric ton by 0805 GMT. Aluminium was down 0.5% to $2,270.50. Zinc rose 0.3% to $2,573 and lead advanced 0.2% to $2,153.50, and nickel rose 0.7% to $22,440. The dollar strengthened after a survey from the Federal Reserve showed U.S. banks reported tighter credit standards and weaker loan demand during the second quarter, a sign rising interest rates are having an impact on the economy.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Indian rice exporters have been receiving requests from buyers to advance shipments of basmati rice after New Delhi banned exports of non-basmati white rice to dampen local prices, industry officials told Reuters. The world's biggest exporter of rice surprised buyers earlier this month by imposing a ban on exports of non-basmati white rice after retail rice prices climbed 3% in a month after late but heavy monsoon rains caused significant damage to crops. Buyers are requesting early shipments because they fear that the government might put restrictions on exports of basmati rice as well, said Atul Garg, managing director at GRM Overseas, a leading exporter of basmati rice. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to Trade Flow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at Trade Flow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.